So, when I really started trying to understand second language acquisition, the first thing I heard, and probably many, many times, was it takes 5 to 7 years to get proficiency in English in the English language. And I always wondered why and why it took so long. So, hi, I'm Chris. I'm very excited to start today the series called How Languages Are Learned. And we're going to have a few episodes about that and just talk about some key concepts. So, today's key concept is about first language acquisition. So, we're going to look at three key concepts from the field of first language acquisition, and we're going to try to understand them so we can use that knowledge as building up to understanding second and third and fourth language acquisition. As I started to look at the stages of second language acquisition and that amount of time that took to learn a language, I was introduced to the levels or to the stages of second language acquisition. In order to understand second language acquisition, we first need to go back and try to understand how one person gets or acquires their first language. And that leads us to our first key concept today, which is the concept of acquisition. Acquisition is the natural process that occurs without any conscious effort or any kind of direct teaching. That's basically how every person learns their first language. When you were a baby or a toddler, no one formally taught you how to speak your native language. So that was just a natural process. And that usually takes about 1 to 2 years for most people. And just have in mind that we're talking about oral language here. But the real question is, how exactly do we learn it? And I guess the simple answer would be that we learn because we are repeatedly exposed to words and sentence structures in meaningful interactions. So with people, we talk to people, people talk to us. Of course, when we are babies, we're not talking yet, but we are somehow communicating. And that's why I have this cute baby, in my opinion, there, which is my daughter. And she is 8 months old. And there was a song that I sang to her in Portuguese, my native language, that pretty much said little clap, little clap, little clap. And then I would play with her. I would hold her hands into my hands, and we would clap together. And I'd sing it, and then I would clap it, and then I would sing it, and she would clap it. And of course, she actually became proficient at it later on, not as when I first started. But I want to show you this video because I want you to see how our interaction was. So let's watch it.
Paulinha, Paulinha, Paulinha.
So if you noticed that while I'm saying the word palminha, which is little clap, she's doing another gesture, but and she looks like as if she's confused or acting out, but then she smiles, claps, and says "pa" very softly, and as if she's trying to tell me that she knows what it is that I'm singing about. She understands what it is, and she's learning that word. So as you can see, we had an interaction. She was looking at me. I was giving feedback, through my facial expression. And so that's how acquisition, the natural process, happens. It's just not like a person sitting there and not doing anything, but they are actually processing, and there's an interaction, there's feedback going on. All of this sounds great, but So if we think about that, we learn sentence structures and through repetition and all that. What happens when kids start saying stuff like gold or bring, So how do we explain those mistakes? They were not definitely not exposed to that. And so how can we explain that? In order to explain it, we have to go to our second concept, which is the concept of language acquisition device by Chomsky. So when Chomsky introduced this term, he was talking about first language acquisition, and he was not really talking about an actual device. It's not a machine, but it is a special. What he was talking about is a specialized area in our brain, or better yet, a capability in our brain specifically wired or devised for language learning. He claims that every human babe is born with this natural ability, with this language acquisition device, um, that has the ability to pick up patterns of different languages. And once the pattern or patterns are acquired, the children start to be able to produce words and phrases and ultimately sentences. So, uh, what about the children that are growing up in bilingual or multilingual homes or environments? And as you can see at first, like when they start talking, there's a lot of translanguaging. They are talking. They are using devices from both tools from both languages, but eventually they are able to switch very proficiently from one language to the other. The explanation for that is that they are able to pick up patterns from different languages. But notice that I didn't yet answer the question about forms like go or bring. But if you think about a brain picking up patterns, the brain's picking up the pattern that for every time you're talking about a past situation or a past event, you are going to put the ed at the end, at least for most verbs. That's the pattern, right? And then we have some exceptions, but the pattern is to add ed. So when children or English learners start saying bringed or gold, what they are doing is actually it's an error called overgeneralization, which is our third key concept, in which the error is caused by overgeneralizing the pattern or the rule that all verbs in the past take the ed suffix. Therefore, that kind of error is called overgeneralization. So they are based on learned patterns and rules. All verbs in the past take ed at the end, therefore bringed. So that is how we explain those sorts of mistakes. So those are three key concepts from the first language acquisition field that I believe are useful for us to start to understand how languages are learned. On our next episodes, we're going to discuss key concepts from the second language acquisition field, and we're going to try to answer the question, if ELL students are all on the same level, why are they learning English at different speeds? So I hope to see you on our next episode. Thank you. Thanks for watching.